They said he was dead, buried with honors, name carved in stone, remembered as a hero, but no one ever imagined that 15 years later, he'd walk right back into the same military base that had mourned his death, moving as if he'd just stepped off a mission. It was early. The winter wind scraped against the soldiers' skin at the main gate of Dover Tactical Base, but the cold felt like nothing compared to what they felt when they saw that man approaching. His steps were steady, his back straight, a scruffy gray beard making him look like he'd been walking for days without rest. Gabriel Hunter. That name echoed in Sergeant Holden's mind before he even confirmed it on the faded plastic badge the man was holding out. His chest tightened. He knew that name. Everyone did. Gabriel was the Special Forces operator who gave his life to save hundreds during the explosion at a suicide drone depot in Afghanistan. ID, please, Holden said, swallowing hard, trying to keep his composure. Gabriel didn't answer. He just kept his eyes locked on Holden's, eyes as gray as the morning sky, and let the badge fall onto the counter. The old, cracked plastic showed the photo of a younger man. No wrinkles, no tired expression. But what made Holden take a step back wasn't the photo or the badge that had expired 2 months ago. It was the embroidered symbol on the military backpack he carried, a black wolf with red eyes, sewn into an old patch so worn out that you could barely make out the design. The Ghost Wolf's wolf. Soldiers began whispering, and the entire base seemed to slow down in that moment. The Ghost Wolves were a legend spoken of only in hushed tones in the barracks. A unit so secret that no one admitted it existed. Invisible warriors who took on missions no one else could or would dare to take. Right then, Colonel Anthony Williams stepped out from inside the gate, ready to start another day of bureaucratic routines. But when he saw Gabriel standing there, he froze. Hot coffee dripped from his fingers without him noticing. Williams felt his heart pounding so hard it felt like it would shatter his ribs. He knew that face. It was the face of the man who had saved his life 15 years ago, and who had died in another soldier's arms as he screamed for help. "Sir, do you know this man?" Holden asked, his voice nearly breaking. Williams didn't answer right away. He just walked up to Gabriel, stopped barely a foot away, studied every line in his face, every white strand in his beard, and felt a chill crawl up his spine. "Gabriel Hunter, they said you were dead." For the first time, Gabriel spoke. His voice was deep, low, but carried something no one there could quite decipher. Sadness, fear, anger, exhaustion, or maybe all of it at once. "I did die, Colonel, but now, someone's using my codes, and if I hadn't come back, today would have been your funeral." Williams felt the ground vanish beneath him. The soldiers around them exchanged terrified glances. That dead man who had returned, he wasn't just bringing answers. He was announcing an end no one was ready to face. If this story is already pulling you in, hit like and subscribe, because what comes next is even more intense. The colonel took a deep breath, feeling the weight of Gabriel's stare. "Who's using your codes, Hunter?" Gabriel lifted his head, and with ice-cold eyes he replied, "One of the Ghost Wolves, and he's here inside." Gabriel sat in an interrogation room that smelled like cheap disinfectant and stale coffee. The cold concrete walls echoed the constant buzz of the fluorescent light above him, but his gaze stayed fixed on the mirror in front. On the other side, Colonel Williams watched in silence, trying to process the impossible. To his left, Lieutenant Morrison was typing furiously, pulling up data to confirm what they were seeing. On his screen, old photos showed a younger man, clean-shaven, eyes bright and confident, wearing the Ghost Wolves uniform with the black wolf patch on his shoulder. Gabriel Hunter, born in Boston, 1976, enlisted at 18, Medal of Honor for action in Afghanistan, declared dead in 2009 during Operation Phantom Echo, body never recovered. Morrison read the lines like he was reciting a death sentence. Williams took a deep breath. He remembered every detail of that day. The bombing, the explosion that swallowed the entire squad, the black smoke rising as the medevac helicopters arrived too late. Hunter had died saving them all. "So tell me," Williams said, stepping into the room and sitting across from the man who had been his hero and now looked like a ghost. "Where have you been all these years?" Gabriel raised his eyes, and all they held was exhaustion. "Where any ghost would be, Colonel. In the shadows." He took a deep breath, resting his forearms on the table. But today, someone's using my codes, my methods, my infiltration routes. And if I hadn't come back, this base would be nothing but smoke tomorrow. Williams felt his stomach twist. Do you know who it is? Gabriel looked at the mirror, as if he could see beyond the glass and concrete walls. Yeah, one of the ghost wolves, the best of us. The only one who could hack this system without leaving a trace. Who? Marcus Chen. The name made Morrison stop typing. Williams felt his throat go dry. Marcus Chen was a legend among legends. Tactical intelligence, expert in infiltration and disabling defense systems. But he had died with Gabriel on that mission. Or at least that's what everyone believed. He's dead, Hunter. You saw it. Gabriel shook his head slowly. I saw an explosion. I saw pieces of his gear burning, but I never saw his body. And if he survived, he's not the man we knew anymore. Suddenly, the room lights flickered. Morrison glanced at the screen, and what he saw drained all color from his face. Lines of code were scrolling rapidly, overriding security systems, door locks, and air defense protocols. We're being hacked, right now. Gabriel stood up so fast his chair toppled over. He rushed to Morrison and shoved his hands off the keyboard. His own fingers began to fly across the keys, typing commands Morrison had never seen before. Green lines, symbols, codes that would be incomprehensible to anyone else. But for Gabriel, it was as natural as breathing. On the screen, data appeared that no one expected to see. Full maps of the base, radar blind spots, guard shift schedules, evacuation routes. Morrison felt his chest tighten. He's mapping everything. No, Gabriel said, his voice low and steady. He's preparing for something much worse. Williams placed a hand on his shoulder. Hunter, what is he going to do? Marcus isn't stealing intel. He's planning an attack. And if there's anyone who knows how to take down this entire base, it's him. The ground seemed to disappear beneath Williams' feet. The silence in the room was heavy, broken only by the rapid clacking of Gabriel's fingers on the keys. Morrison looked at the screen, and his voice trembling, asked, How do we stop him? Gabriel looked up at Williams, his eyes hardened by 15 years spent in the shadows. First, Colonel, we need to survive the next hour. At that moment, the base's PA system activated by itself, and a soft voice, dripping with irony, echoed through the building, sending chills down every soldier's spine. Hello, Gabriel. It's been a while. Williams's heart slammed against his chest. Gabriel closed his eyes, feeling the weight of that voice in every bone in his body. Marcus Chen was alive, and he was ready to finish what they had started. Marcus's voice echoed through the base's loudspeakers, smooth as silk but laced with venom. Gabriel, you have no idea how happy I was to see your name pop up in the systems today. I honestly thought you were dead, but ghosts always come back, don't they? Gabriel felt his chest tighten, but he kept his eyes locked on the screen, scanning every flickering line of code. What do you want, Marcus? On the other end, a short, dry laugh. I want justice. I want everyone to see what we really are. Not heroes, not saviors, just monsters trained to kill. Williams stepped closer, trying to stay calm as soldiers rushed through the halls on full alert. Marcus, you're putting innocent lives at risk. There are families here, civilians, children. Families? Marcus replied, his voice turning colder. Now you care about families, Colonel? Where was that compassion when my wife and daughter died in a botched airstrike from an operation you commanded? When the building they were in turned to dust while you toasted your victory back at HQ? Gabriel closed his eyes. He remembered that day. The moment Marcus got the news out in the field, collapsing to his knees in the desert sand, screaming silently, his face streaked with tears and dust. From that day on, something inside him had shattered for good. Marcus, it doesn't have to be like this, Gabriel said, trying to steady the tremble in his hand. You're not this man. I'm not? The bitter laugh returned, sharp as poison. Then prove it. You have 1 hour, Gabriel. 1 hour to find the 10 bombs I've planted around the base. Each one is wired to the others. Fail to disarm even one, and they all go off. Morrison swallowed hard. Williams felt his pulse skyrocket. Bombs? Where are they? Oh, Colonel, if only it were that easy. Each bomb is hidden somewhere meaningful to me and Gabriel. Places where we trained, where we bled, where we planned missions that never officially existed. A little trip down memory lane, isn't it, Gabe? On the screen, countdown timers suddenly appeared, each starting at 59 minutes and 59 seconds, ticking down. Gabriel's throat went dry as he saw the red dots scattered across the base map. Each one was a death sentence. "Why are you doing this, Marcus?" Gabriel asked, his voice low and gravelly. "Because you left me behind," Marcus answered without hesitation. "I watched that helicopter lift off while I was bleeding under the rubble. I waited. I screamed. But you never came back. I searched for you." Gabriel slammed his fist onto the table, his voice echoing through the room. "I searched until I couldn't stand anymore. I thought you died in that explosion." "Well, you thought wrong," Marcus replied, his tone almost sad. "And now, Gabe, now you're going to know what it feels like to be left to die." The sound system cut off, and the silence that fell over the room seemed to scream. Williams took a deep breath, trying to regain control. "Hunter, tell me what to do." Gabriel stared at the map, took a long breath, and wiped away the tears threatening to fall. "Give me a team. 5 men. I need the best you've got. We'll start at the old communications room. That's where Marcus spent entire nights programming new protocols. If he wanted to leave a message for me, that's where it would be." Williams nodded. "I'll assemble the team right away." Gabriel lifted his eyes, cold and hard as steel. "And Colonel, prepare your men for the worst, because he's not just trying to kill us. He wants to break me from the inside first." A chill ran down William's spine. The man in front of him wasn't just a war veteran. He was someone fighting his own ghosts to save people he didn't even know, even though he knew he could lose everything all over again. Gabriel adjusted his tactical vest, while 5 elite soldiers watched in silence. Their faces showed both fear and respect. It was like seeing a legend come back to life, a man forged by war who still carried in his eyes the pain of someone who couldn't bear to lose anything else. He checked his pistol, felt each magazine, and without raising his head, said in a firm voice, "Let's finish this." The first bomb was found in the old communications room. Blue, green, and red wires twisted into a device that looked way too simple. But Gabriel knew better. Marcus never did anything simple. He knelt down, examining every connection, and next to the timer, he saw something that made his chest tighten. An old photo, taken in the desert, showed him and Marcus smiling, covered in sand, with the sun setting behind them. "He wants me to remember everything we had," he murmured. "Sir," one of the soldiers asked, but Gabriel didn't answer. His hands moved fast, cutting the right wire and disarming the bomb with 10 seconds left, but his heart was pounding like he'd just run a marathon. When he looked up, the master timer showed 40 minutes remaining. They moved on. The next bomb was in the weapons lab, where Gabriel and Marcus had spent hours coming up with makeshift fixes for defective gear. On top of the bomb sat a handwritten note. "You were always the creative one, Gabe. Let's see if you still have it in you." Gabriel felt a sharp pain in his chest. He defused the device without hesitation, but each bomb he disarmed felt like it was stripping away a piece of his soul. When they reached the cafeteria, they heard the screams before they even walked in. 15 civilians were trapped inside, locked in, and in the center of the room sat another bomb. This time, there was no note, just a loudspeaker mounted on the wall, and from it, Marcus's voice flowed out, smooth and poisonous. "See them, Gabriel? See what they really are? Pawns, numbers in reports, disposable lives we swore to protect, but they'd sacrifice in a heartbeat if it served their plans. Marcus, stop this," Gabriel snapped back, his throat mic vibrating with the force of his voice. "These people did nothing to you. Neither did my family," Marcus replied, his voice breaking for the first time. "They died because you chose to follow orders instead of helping me get them out of that building." "I didn't know," Gabriel shouted. Hot tears rolled down his face, mixing with the cold sweat. "I didn't know they were there. I would have given my life for them. But you didn't." A heavy silence fell over the room. The bomb's timer read 32 minutes. Gabriel stepped up to the device to examine it. This one was different. It had motion sensors wired to the doors. One wrong move, and everyone would die. He took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and let the world fade away for a moment. He remembered when Marcus taught him about pressure traps, how his fingers moved fast and sure. "You have to feel the machine, Gabe. Listen to its rhythm before you touch it. Opening his eyes, Gabriel felt the bomb's rhythm. Its ticking was like a sick heart, his own heart. He cut one wire, then another. The timer froze at 28 minutes. The civilian's collective sigh nearly made him collapse. But there was no time for that. More bombs waited, and Marcus was still out there. In the hallway, as he adjusted his holstered gun, Gabriel looked at the soldier beside him. "Where's the next one?" "Sub-level 3, sir. Ghost Wolves training room." Gabriel felt his stomach twist. That was where it had all begun. Where he and Marcus had trained until they bled. Where they laughed, planned, and built the bond that was now tearing them apart. He walked without a word, each step echoing like hammer blows in his chest. When he reached the door, he felt like he was walking not just into that room, but into every memory he'd tried to forget. Inside, Marcus stood with his arms crossed, staring at the computer displaying all the active timers. His face was older, his gray beard unkempt, but his eyes were the same. Deep, sharp, wounded. "Hey, Gabe." Gabriel didn't respond. He just stood there, looking at the man he once called brother. "Here to take me out?" Marcus asked, giving a crooked smile with no joy behind it. "I'm here to end this," Gabriel replied, his voice low but steady. Marcus shrugged. "You'll have to kill me." Gabriel shook his head, his eyes filling with tears. "I already killed you once, Marcus. I'm not doing it again." A deadly silence settled over the room. The master timer read 25 minutes. Marcus glanced at the screen, then back at Gabriel. "So, what are you gonna do? Remind you who you were, before all this." Marcus let out a bitter laugh, but his eyes glistened with tears he refused to shed. "I was your brother. You still are." Marcus's hands trembled. He looked at the keyboard, then back at Gabriel. "I don't know how to come back from this." "I do," Gabriel said, extending his hand. "Together." The timer kept counting down. 24 minutes. 23. Marcus closed his eyes. When he opened them again, silent tears were streaming down his face. He grabbed Gabriel's hand, squeezed it hard, then turned to the computer and started typing. One by one, the bombs disappeared from the map. But before the last one was disabled, alarms blared as the base shook. Armed soldiers burst into the room, rifles trained on Marcus. "Don't shoot!" Gabriel shouted, spreading his arms in front of his friend. "Step aside, sir!" one of the soldiers yelled. Marcus raised his hands, tears still rolling down his cheeks. "It's too late," he said, looking at Gabriel with an infinite sadness. "They'll never let us walk out of here as free men." Gabriel felt his chest rip apart inside, but he kept his gaze locked and steady. "Trust me." The timer read 22 minutes. The soldiers cuffed Marcus without hesitation. Gabriel tried to intervene, but two men held him back, pushing him aside as they led Marcus down the narrow hallway. His friend didn't resist. He walked with his head down, eyes fixed on the floor, as if the weight of 15 years of pain had finally crushed his shoulders. As he was taken away, he glanced back one last time, meeting Gabriel's gaze. And in that single silent second, he asked for forgiveness. Hours later, silence settled over the base. Technicians were dismantling the remaining bombs. Soldiers returned to their posts with empty stares, trying to process what they had just lived through. Gabriel sat alone on a cold bench in the courtyard, feeling the icy dawn breeze. His fingers still trembled. Inside him, the war raged on, but for the first time there was room for something else. Peace. Colonel Williams approached slowly, sat beside him, and stayed quiet for a while before finally saying, "You saved more lives today than most do in their entire careers, Hunter." Gabriel shook his head without looking up. "I didn't save the only one who needed it." Williams took a deep breath. "He's alive, and he surrendered. Maybe that's what he needed most today." Gabriel closed his eyes as warm tears fell onto his gloves. He remembered meeting Marcus on their first mission, a shy kid, trembling as he fired his weapon for the first time. He remembered laughing together after an impossible victory against an insurgent group. He remembered when Marcus lost everything, and how no one, not even himself, had been there to hold him through his pain. The next morning, Gabriel walked into the military prison. He passed through metal detectors, heavy gates, and the cold stares of guards until he reached the visitation room. Marcus was there, cuffed to the iron table, staring at nothing. When he saw Gabriel, he lifted his eyes, and for a second, he was the man Gabriel once knew. "Didn't think you'd come," he said, his voice rough. Gabriel sat down across from him, leaning his elbows on the table, and spoke softly. "I promised I wouldn't leave you again." Marcus closed his eyes, silent tears falling down his tired face. "I don't know if I can change, Gabe. I don't know if I can go back to who I was." Gabriel took his cuffed hand and gripped it tightly. "You don't need to go back to who you were. You just need to be who you are now. Someone who saved hundreds of lives. Someone who chose to stop." Marcus cried in silence. No sobs, just tears falling like a gentle rain. As Gabriel left, he looked up at the winter sky, still heavy with clouds, but with a thin golden ray breaking through the horizon. It was a small detail, almost unnoticeable, but enough to remind him that light always returns, even after the longest nights. Walking across the courtyard, he felt the weight of the past on his shoulders, but for the first time in years, he didn't feel like running away. He knew he couldn't change what had happened, but he could choose who he would be from that moment on. And that choice, however small, was what made him human. And you, if you were in Gabriel's place, would you have reached out your hand to someone who nearly destroyed everything out of revenge? Let us know in the comments. If you liked this story, hit like, subscribe to the channel, and check out the next video coming up on your screen. Because there are always new stories here that might surprise you even more.